Hello and welcome back to RamsTalkPodcast. And we've had a couple of weeks off, haven't we, for the international break? We were all really excited for football to start again. And then what did Derby do? They do what they usually do. And it was a horrendous watch that I don't think any of us enjoyed. But we've got an opportunity today to go through it, understand what went wrong, understand why Derby just aren't ticking at the moment. Things just aren't happening for Derby. And yeah, it just seems a little bit strange at the minute. After all the excitement over the summer, we thought we were going to get a bit of momentum after West Brom, and it's all kind of come crashing down a little bit. So we've got lots to discuss, so glad to have you here with us. So joining me today, first off, we've got Callum Boocock. How you doing, mate?
I'm good. I mean, yeah, you were saying about trying to dissect it and stuff. I think that's the $1 million question. What's up with the Rams at the moment? So, yeah, it'll be interesting discussion.
It certainly will. And a man who's modelled his hair off Callum Boocock. It's Ivan Little. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, good. Thanks, mate. Yeah, it took a while to find a barber that could get it done, but yeah, it's
just find a bowl.
Yeah.
Great stuff. Right. So from the fun of that to the not fun of the end of the game yesterday, and obviously we've got lots to talk about the game, but I just wanted to touch on the scenes at full time yesterday because we saw quite a lot under Paul Warne. I think Leeds away was probably like the main one where the fans had turned, right? And we were booing and the players came over and applauded and the manager came over and there were boos and everyone ran down the tunnel. And yesterday was the first time under Eustace where it's kind of felt similar at full time. The players and Eustace came over. There were boos at full time from the away end, but the boos only intensified when the players came over. Don't get me wrong, some people were applauding as well, but there were a lot of boos around me. It was very, very loud around me, and I think it drowned out the people trying to show their appreciation to the players. Callum, it was a bit of a weird one. Obviously, the performance has been really bad. The team played really poorly, which of course we'll get on to, I'm sure. But it's not a good sign, is it? At the minute, and without going all disaster, panic stations, what's going to happen, Eustace out, it's not looking good for Derby at the moment. And does it look to you like there's a way out of this?
Look, there's always a way out, and that's when players perform and the manager finds what's going wrong and the team turns around the form from what it currently is now. So there always is a way out. It's just at the moment it just doesn't look like there will be in the foreseeable. This is just, I think I put it on social media after the game that I think this season's just going to be a slog. I think, like you said, pre-season with the signings, money spent, Eustace coming in through the door after what he turned around at the end of last season. Everyone was really hopeful that we'd, kick on. And the word from the club and Eustace was like, wait till this international break. We're going to have the players back fit. And almost this was like the first game of when we can kind of pick up that momentum. And it was just the complete opposite. I mean, you mentioned about the atmosphere post game. I think that's kind of just been seeping in over the last couple of weeks in prior to the winter. I mean, the Charlton game at Pride Park was evident. It was really, really toxic there. And then obviously you've got the game yesterday. I think, look, I'm not pushing any panic buttons or any buttons on Eustace himself or anything like that. But I think if the form doesn't turn around, it's going to, those ones who are kind of on the fence are going to slowly start to drift the other way. And you're going to have more scenes like you saw yesterday.
Well, that's it. And Ivan, I'm looking at the comments at the minute. We've got words like awful, shocked, appalled. It's not good, is it? And it's not a nice atmosphere around Derby at the minute. And like I said, we saw at the start of the season, we'd had the Great Escape last year. We brought in loads of players, spent a good amount of money to bring some talented individuals into the club. And at the moment, things are looking pretty dark.
Yeah, I mean, yesterday was terrible, and I think Oxford are one of the sides who you'd hope we'd be beating quite handedly with the squad that we have and the manager that we had going into the season. I'm not as pessimistic as other people. I think I still trust him, and I think it's only 10 games in. I think we will come good. We've also it sounds like an excuse, but we have had a lot of injuries and stuff, and you would have hoped that by now it would have been settled and they would have started to be playing football. I think the real problem is just how bad they looked individually as well. Like there was no fight. It was the polar opposite of last year, where it was the sort of siege mentality, like go out, get results. Like we don't have the best squad in the world and we don't have a lot of games left, but every player who played in that team was fighting for every ball, which is kind of what Oxford were doing yesterday. I think they saw us as a team that like will be up against them for relegation this year, and we need to fight, and we're at home, and that's what they did. And we didn't seem to play like that at all. I didn't see a single player really. I obviously thought Zetterstrom played well, but other than that, I didn't think anyone really fought. No one was going for second balls. Nothing was dropping for us. And yeah, I just thought it was horrendous. But I really do trust Eustace. I think he's earned that trust more than sort of 10 games this year. And I do think he'll come good and we'll start to play good football, but it's definitely going to take some lineup changes, and it's definitely going to need some like mentality changes for the next game for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I think Derby are in a bit of a weird position because we've got a lot of players, and this isn't an excuse. This is absolutely not an excuse. But if you look at the team that played yesterday and you look at the team that finished Derby's pre-season, there's not a lot of players that overlap between the two. It's a completely different side. You know, most of this team have been here, 6 weeks? At most, 5-6 weeks they've been in the building. And it will take time to gel. Obviously, it will take time to gel. You can't sign an entire new team and expect them to work. But I had a bit of a moan about this on Twitter yesterday. It kind of feels like we've brought in the same player about 4 times in multiple positions. You know, number 9s, we've got 3 big number 9s. Why? You know, we've got about 6 centre-backs that all play the same sort of position, all same sort of role. And yet we only brought in, you know, 1 real permanent midfielder. Ozo I don't count because he was here last year anyway. You know, we didn't really bring in any wingers. Andy Vyman, who, you know, he's had a couple of decent games, but he's a winger sort of towards the end of his career. Brereton Diaz, is he a winger? I don't really know. It just seems like we've not really recruited a squad of players. And you talk about last season, we might not have had the best players, but we had players that could play a system and do a job, right? You know that Marcus Harness is going to stretch that pitch and get him behind and create spaces and cause problems. How many times did we get him behind yesterday? Once, maybe twice. There was that one time where Brewster fed through Johnston and he put a decent ball over, and it was unlucky not to fall to Morris. Some good defending kept the ball away from him. You know, we barely got behind them because we play all of our stuff in front of them because we don't have the sort of players, you know, we don't have any pace, do we? We've got no pace. You know, Vyman's 34, he's lost his legs a little bit. Brereton Diaz isn't quick. Morris isn't quick. Brewster seems pretty quick, but he plays a little bit deeper and gets the ball to feet. You know, we just don't seem to have a proper lineup at the minute. And Callum, let's have a look at the team from yesterday. So we set up, it says a 4-2-3-1. It definitely wasn't, having watched it in real life. It was a 4-4-2, right? It was a flat 4-4-2. Obviously, Ibu Adams comes in. Lewis Travis will be out for the next 6 weeks with injury, which is a real miss. I mean, you could tell how much he does in the middle. We just couldn't pass the ball through the centre of the pitch at all because we didn't have the one player we have that can pass the ball through the centre of the pitch, which is quite fun with Ibu Adams 1 yellow away from suspension as well, which I'm sure we'll talk about. You had your normal back 4. You had, the 4 in midfield, Vyman on the right, Brereton Diaz on the left, Brewster and Morris up front. Was that the right team for you?
I mean, I was looking at what I'd put out pre-game, and I mean, obviously, without knowing that Travis was injured, Travis was in there for Ibu. I mean, you're then looking at probably a similar formation, but Brewster probably, for me, in the 10 rather than a 2 up top, because I just think that the 2 in midfield especially need someone in there just slightly higher up than them to kind of be that interlink between the midfield and the striker. But obviously the way it's set up, like you mentioned, Brewster was kind of triggering the press up top. You then had Morris just sat in behind him. It was they were kind of just like dabbling between the 2 of them, and the 2 in the central midfield was so isolated and kind of followed each other around that kind of meant that there was so much space for their players just to fill in the gaps and to have time on the ball and catch us on the counter. I think then you look at it and go, were we set up incorrectly from the start? But like you mentioned, we've now lost Travis, who, like you said, had a few critiques over the last couple of weeks, but I think what now you're missing, you miss that player who can get the ball and he always looks for a forward pass. And the thing is with Ibu and Ozo is that the both of them, maybe Ozo looks to try and find that pass, but then Ibu's there to break up the play. He's not there to be the kind of the deep line playmaker to kind of take it from defence and start an attack. So the trouble is then, where's the attack starting from? And like you mentioned, what formation can we play now because of what we've got left at our disposal?
Well, that's it. And Ivan, you look at the success that Derby had last season, and that success really started when we started playing that 3-5-2. And I think it's less about the system, more about the players and the way we played, because you had Harrison Armstrong as that sort of sitting man, and then you had Ibu and Tomo in front doing all the running and fighting and scrapping. Derby yesterday, it was a 4-2-4. Is how it felt to me a lot of the time. We had Brereton Diaz sat really high, Weimann sat really high, and then two strikers up front. Our midfield, we had a two-man midfield trying to cover a vast expanse of space, and I thought they got destroyed, if I'm honest. I thought Ibu Adams and David Ozo got rid. I actually forgot Ozo was playing at one point. And when you watch him most of the time, he's the man who takes the ball, pushes people around, drives us forward. But I think we're just a man short, in my personal opinion. What did you make of Derby's system and its flaws?
I said about 10, 15 minutes in when I was watching, I just felt at the start when the lineup comes out, you sort of get a bit excited because we haven't had the sort of attacking options that we have now. And he's kind of fitting them all in. You're thinking, okay, Brereton Diaz is out there, who I like, and, Morris and Brewster, who have looked good, and, Weimann's looked all right. My initial problem straight away was, all four of them are strikers. Like, I know Brewster's a sort of a 10 and he can, but he's a striker, and Weimann is a striker, and Brereton Diaz can play on the wing. Yeah, he's a striker, and Morris is a striker. So you've got these four players who all want to do the same thing. And in wingers, I either want someone who's quick and can go past someone, or someone who's really creative and can link players up from out wide. Neither of them do that. They both want to run at someone and shoot, or they want to be played in behind. Both of them do. So they're not wingers to me. And I don't care like what system it is that we're playing or what formation. That doesn't matter to me. When you've got four players up there who all want to basically do the same thing, it's not going to work, which is why I was happy that Clark came on, because whether you like him or not, or whether he's played well or not, at least he's got a bit of creativity. He's got a little bit more of what you'd want from someone up there who can maybe create. And he came on straight away. He played a pass through, which was offside, but it was better than what we'd seen already, rather than just sort of aimlessly trying to hoof it up to Morris, who might flick it on to Brewster, who's rarely going to do that anyway. It just didn't work. And then, like you were saying with Ozo and Adams can't pass, so he's not going to do any of that. That's not his job. Ozo, we think, you look at him and you think, yeah, he's a good passer of the ball, he's good at this. That's not his game either. He's a good passer because he's a good player. He's a good, he's, played in the Premier League. Like, he's on loan from Palace. He's a good player, so he's going to be good at passing. But that isn't his game. You need someone in there who's going to thread a pass out wide that's then going to get us going. And to be honest, even if we did have a number 10 who's creative and could get stuff going, or a midfielder who could spray passes out, I just don't think Weimann and Brereton Diaz, and I like both of them a lot. I would like to see both of them up front at some point. I just don't think it works. They're not wingers to me. And I think maybe Weimann could have done it a few years ago, but I don't want either of them out there. I want them running in the ball. Like, you can see every single time Brereton Diaz gets the ball, he wants to shoot. Every single time. He's not looking for a pass. He doesn't want to cross it. He doesn't want to run past it. Like, he wants to shoot no matter where it is. So that just doesn't work for me in an area where you want a little bit of creativity, especially when you don't have it on the other side. And it makes the midfield look worse. I feel bad for Ebu. I feel bad for Ozo. Ozo had his worst game I've seen from him by a mile. He was losing the ball, which he doesn't usually do. And it was just because he had four players on him all the time, because there were four strikers sat in the other half the whole game. So I think something definitely has to change. And then it further got worse when he brings two more strikers on and plays them. I'm like, oh, Morris is coming off. That's weird. And I should have known better that he doesn't take Morris off. So there's now three massive number 9s who all want to head it on to someone else, all looking up there like, what do we do? And it's just feels like we've gone from no attacking talent really to like, oh, we've got all these new toys now, let's shove it all on, and like one of them will score, and it doesn't work, especially with the rest of the players that we have.
Well, it feels a little bit like tactics wise, it's like on Football Manager, that time when that 3 advanced forwards thing was a thing, and you just play 3 out and out 9s, and because the game's not realistic, it actually works. But it feels like transfer wise, it is again like on Football Manager when you put bids in for a few players and you're like, oh, I kind of like all of these are pretty good.
They all get accepted as well.
Yeah, they all get accepted, and you're like, you know what, I can keep all of these, this is great. And then you get them all, and you're like, well, what do I do now? And that's how it feels. I agree with you, Ivan. It's like we've got so many players all trying to do the same thing. You know, we had no strikers last season. We had Jerry Yates as our one out-and-out striker. And now we've got, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We've got 6. We've got 6. You know, we've got 6 strikers and 1 winger. How does that make any sense? And I mean, a comment from Adam Lilly says we need George Thorne as well. I think you're right. I think we just need that third player. At the minute, it feels like we've got so many attackers, we want to play all of them, or we want to play a good amount of them, because we've got all these players, we kind of need to use them, don't we? But then that leaves us short in other areas, and I think players are suffering for it. I really do think players are suffering for it. But Callum, let's move on to their goal. Ivan did make a point about Brayton Diaz not wanting to cross. Well, unfortunately, on one occasion he did cross, and it wasn't a very good one, and it got headed away, and they smashed us on the break. Was he offside? I genuinely don't know. I've seen people say that he was. I'm sure that guy up in that tree behind the goal got a good enough view to tell us whether it was on or not. But ball goes through. He's through 1v1. Zetterstrom, who'd already made 3 or 4 really important saves, is unlucky. It's a good finish, and it's a decent finish. And Derby are behind, Callum. I mean, that is 10 games in a row where Derby have conceded the first goal now, Cal.
Yep. And I think the trouble is that you're then looking at, I mean, which game was it? I think it was Charlton, that when we went behind, it was almost like a light bulb went off in everyone's heads and just gone, oh, we actually need to, go and actually have a go. But yesterday that didn't even happen when we went behind. It nothing really went off in the minds. But I think when you look at the goal itself, it was so basic. There was so much time for the player in the middle to then play the ball through. And look, I love Craig Forsyth, I absolutely do, but he struggled massively yesterday. The winger had him in his back pocket the entire game. I mean, Fozzie also struggled with passing, so I think that's just again that'll just put behind him and stuff. But I think that's when you see at this level, if you just put him through a 1v1 with a winger in a foot race, he's not going to get there. And it was so easy for them to pass it past Zetterstrom, who without him, which we'll probably go on to at some point, without him, it would have been a cricket score at some points. But yeah, it was a real easy goal for them and a real hard watch from a Derby perspective.
Yeah, I to be honest, I really felt sorry for Fozzie and Johnston, because every time one of them got the ball, you talk about the passing thing. There was one time where Forsyth got the ball and Diaz just ran off.
Yeah.
And not one midfielder came to ask. And you can see him, he's like, please, somebody make an option for me. Yeah, and no one came and helped, and he just ended up smacking it down the wing, and it just happened over and over again. Johnson had the same on the other side. He just didn't have anyone to pass to. Again, you've got 2 players in midfield trying to cover such a vast expanse of space. If neither of them are around, if you've got the ball at the back, you're pretty screwed. There's no way out. But Ivan, the goal, again, like Callum said, it was really basic. They played it straight through the middle of us. It was a decent it was a classic Gary Rowett counter-attack, wasn't it? But that wasn't the only time they did that. They did that 3 or 4 times throughout the game, where one of them had peel off on one side and run through on goal, and we were lucky that Zetterstrom had a game as good as he did, because if not, like Callum said, it could have been a cricket score.
Yeah, no, it could have been bad, and Zetterstrom, I do think there was some of the saves that Zetterstrom was making, it was like if he didn't make them, you'd be pretty unhappy. So he did play very well, and I thought his kickings looked a lot better recently, which is a huge positive, because that's going to be really important going forward. Mainly being that he's not just kicking it out of the pitch every time. So anything's better than that. But Yeah, I just think it seems strange. I do have the positivity I do have is I think when you get a really big squad, like we have, and there's a lot of players that are going to be expecting to A, start or B, play a significant amount of minutes, it does take going through some bad times for people to be like, right, or for someone like Eustace, who is obviously a strong sort of, manager personality wise, I think it will get to the point where he's like, right, this isn't working, you're not working. Like he won't be, I don't think he'll be afraid to bench people. And I don't think he'll be afraid to sort of say, you're not playing more than sort of 10 minutes. Like we may get you on at the end, but you haven't been good enough. And it does take a little bit of time into the season sometimes for that to happen. With the goal, as soon as it went in, I was just sort of sat there thinking, like, I can't think of one time. Like I've watched every minute of every game this year. When was the last time that we played a pass through to someone and they ran through and scored, or they didn't score? And the only thing I can think of is when Adjumang turned to
that man.
Yeah, and he was through on goal and he didn't put it away. And that's I can't think of any other time.
There was one. I think there
wasn't.
Adjumang also had one from Morris slipped through from him, and he put it.
That was quite wide, though, wasn't it? I know which one you mean. Like, he was a bit wide.
You're clutching at straws, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, we maybe have 2 in 10 games, and even in the cup game, it's the same thing. So, and again, like, Morris is not really the type of player that wants it played in behind a ton, and he's not going to sprint past people. But like, Adjumang's quick. Like Brereton Diaz plays really central when he's not playing out wide a lot of the time. Like a lot of the time he's waiting for a pass through. And so then that immediately tells me there's a problem in midfield. And I'm not blaming them because it's not their role. Ebbo Adams is never, ever going to play a perfect ball through, like, a couple of times a season. Like that's not his game, unfortunately. He's a very good player, but it's not his fault, and it's not Ozo's fault either. Like I said, I think a lot of people think that he's this like sort of Tom Huddleston kind of player because of his size and he's good on the ball. But I think it's just he is a quality player, so some of his passing is going to be naturally good. But neither of them want to do that. They want to break up play. Ozo wants to go through a couple of players and then pass it off to someone else. He doesn't want to spray something in behind. And even if he did, like I don't want to repeat myself, but there's nothing to run onto it anyway. They're not quick enough. They're not those types of players. So the goal just really highlighted to me, like, Oxford were below us before this game. They weren't having a good season. They looked fantastic. They should have beaten us 5-0, really.
Yeah. And
that's not good. When there's a team that are in the relegation zone that have had a really poor start to the season, have a worse squad, and they're kind of, 1-0 is a very flattering scoreline for us. That's not good. And especially when they're showing you something like playing through balls and playing off each other, and even their passing just looks better. Their short passing, like into people, it just looked better. They were quicker, they were faster, they were fighting more. And that's really worrying. I can get over this. I think with a squad like this, it will eventually come good, but those things are worrying. That kind of like, there are teams that we're making look really good who are not very good this season. And that, I think, is something that it's going to be tougher to get rid of that kind of thing. Whether the fight, I think, will start to come when we start to pick up results.
Yeah, I agree. And to be honest, you talk about the fight. One of the things I noticed was we lost a lot of second balls, and we don't tend to do that very often. But again, you look at the midfield, they're 3 in midfield. They're 3 central midfielders. We had 2. And we were just outnumbered in that area every time. Of course, if they've got more players than us in that position, they're going to win the ball more. And because they control the midfield, there were times where, we made them look really good. And like you said, they were below us in the table, and yet they were knocking it round us easily. Yeah. And it was so weird because first 10 minutes, I actually thought we started pretty well. And, obviously we didn't create anything because that'd be asking too much. But we passed the ball around quite nicely and knocking balls around. Even Ebbo Adams was picking out passes out wide, and Brereton Diaz turned his man a couple of times and ran in. And after that, they completely dominated the game. And I know a lot of the time it's a grass is greener thing. When a player goes or a player's unavailable or, you're not playing very well, you go, but what about them? We've seen it loads in recently. Josh Vickers is the perfect example, but Michael Higton, remember Kenzo, in pre-season, almost every goal we scored, where we played through the centre of the park, came from that man. He'd play a pass, he'd pick someone out, and we don't have anyone like that does that at the minute, which is a real shame. And I think we're hoping Travis would be that guy. I don't know if that's necessarily his game, but we're really lacking in the middle of the park, aren't we now, with creative options? We just don't have any. We just don't have any. There's two players that I want to touch on. Two players that I think have had maybe a little bit of undue stick. I've felt a bit sorry for them. The first one for me is Johnson at right back, and he was getting hammered by people around me. I honestly, I couldn't believe it. He's not started well, has he? Obviously, he's not started well. Otherwise, people wouldn't be criticising him. But there were people around me talking about him like Connor Salmon. Talking about him like I've seen more complaints about Max Johnson than I heard about Caden Jackson, who is 34 games without a goal. You know what I mean? It's mental. Yeah. I've not seen. I don't know why he's the player of choice that everyone's decided they hate, but it feels unfair. He's a young lad. He's just turned 22. He's never played English football before. He's played in Austria. He's played in Scotland. Even a comment now. He can't run. Can he not? You know what I mean? It feels very strange that there's been a bit of a pile on him. To me, I don't know about you, Cal. To me, he looks like a player who's come over. He's joined a struggling team that are really struggling, and he looks really low on confidence. I think there's times when he shows what he can do. That ball he played across, he made a lovely run in behind. Brewster picked him out. He put the ball across, and if the ball was an inch further forward, it falls to Morris, and we score. Right? And I think if that had happened, if they hadn't got that touch, and Morris would have put it in the back of the net, people were going, oh, well played, Johnson. You did well. But that small margin is what's keeping him from succeeding at the minute. What have you made of Johnson so far, Cal?
I love John Eustace, but I think he's absolutely killed Johnston in terms of the fan base and the expectations that they have of him now, because I think he said when he joined that he is one of the best right backs in Europe. And we know what fans are like. We all get excited, then we all go think, right, we've signed a gem from abroad, and he's 22, he's breaking into the Scotland squad, and this is the player that's kind of met that step up from a Kane Wilson. Like, Kane Wilson's good, but this guy's going to be, do you know what I mean? And the trouble is that look, he's naturally going to take a few games to get into it, and you see, for me, technically crossing at his feet, there is something there. Like some of the balls he puts in, the balls he was putting in the last game against Southampton were brilliant, and some of his set balls are absolutely again on the money. But then he has a couple that are a little bit overtouched. But that he's 22, 23. At the end of the day, he's got so much room to grow that we've signed someone who is an international player at 22 years old, and we have an asset for the future. He's going to be a massive confidence player, but for me, the expectations for when he signed have killed him, because I think then fans are just looking at him going, well, is this what we've signed? And the trouble is that he's not the end product. We're not signing a 27, 28-year-old who's proven in Europe and played Champions League football and all this sort of stuff. That's what I think. He's come over from a Champions League club in Austria, played international football, and Eustace has then said he's one of the best right backs, up and coming right backs in Europe, and everyone goes, like, I've seen someone like, we've signed Cafu. Well, that's not what we've signed. So I think I feel so sorry for him, and I think there is a genuinely good player there that Scotland fans, when I did the episode and they introduced him for us, absolutely love him and think, why has he come to us? Like, they were perplexed as to why he came to us from over there and why he hasn't gone for someone else. And I just think if we're not careful, that he's the sort of player, like you said, that can just go the complete opposite way.
Yeah, and we've got to keep his confidence high, haven't we? Right, we've got to keep his confidence high, because if we pile on these new players, especially the young players, how is that going to help? That's the way I view it. How is that going to help? If Johnston picks the ball up to take a throw in and he's got, 20 people behind him telling him how bad he is, it's not going to help him, is it? You know what I mean? Like, how is he going to get any better as a footballer in that sort of situation? But Yeah, I was just having a look at the stats, by the way. Jacob Zetterstrom is ranked number 1 in saves per match in the championship this season.
It's because the amount of shots he has against him.
Yeah, it doesn't bode well, does it? When the keeper's making over 4 saves per game, which is that's not a good stat. But Ivan, the other player I wanted to talk about is Bobby Clark. Now, Bobby Clark, again, is another one where people have piled on him immediately. You know, there were high expectations of him. He started, obviously, at Liverpool. Big money move to Salzburg. Didn't play a huge amount of minutes, but he's come to Derby, which should be, getting his career back on track. I actually thought that he looked really good when he went into the middle yesterday. I thought when he's out wide, he's not a winger. He's not got pace, has he? He's not a quick player. He's not going to skin players. He's not going to do some nice ball rolls and pirouettes and get past people. But what he can do is pick a pass and be in the right place. When he went into the centre of midfield, I thought he looked dangerous. I mean, again, another one. The second I've mentioned him, he's lightweight, gets pushed around. So's Bernardo Silva, so's a lot of players. What have you made of Bobby Clark so far, Ivan?
I think I was going to make a point about Max Johnson, but it's the same point. It can be somewhere in the middle of what you're saying. That they're both good players. They just are. Both of them have proved that they have something about them. They're not distinguished players, but they both clearly have quality. There's a reason why, people enjoy watching them and that they've got the moves that they have and stuff like that. But they haven't played well, and that's fine. None of them have played well. I can't tell you, other than sort of Morris for 3 or 4 games, I can't tell you who's played really well. Even Morris, I don't think has been, that brilliant. None of them have. We haven't had a great start to the season. So it can be one and the same. They are both good players. I do trust that both of them will eventually, figure it out while the team figures it out. But I'm in the middle. I get some of the criticism that both of them get because they haven't played well, but some of it has gone too far. They seem to be, people have some agendas sometimes where it's like they just don't like them, and then as soon as they start having a few bad games, it's like, see, I told you. And it's like, well, Johnson's played 7 games for us, if that, 6 games. And it's like, okay,
warm welcome.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, okay, he hasn't been great, but we spent a lot of money on him. He's very young. I mean, not a ton of money, but for us, that's a decent price tag, 3 million quid or whatever it was. So yeah, and I think same with Clark. It's like Clark's got this thing. He's come from Liverpool and then he went to Leipzig, and he's young and he's clearly talented, and a lot of people wanted to sign him, and now there's rumors that he actually might be signed off of us. But yeah, I think he's a decent player. I don't think he was very good when he came into midfield. I think none of them were very. I don't think there were really any sort of.
It's a low bar. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, it's a low. Yeah. That's what I would say. I thought he looked better. There was something.
Competence
positive
on the ball.
Yeah, it was. There's a little bit of something. There was a feeling that when he got the ball in midfield, maybe something would happen, and there was a few nice, bits of play. And he did seem sort of spark something off the bench. He sort of played a pass, like I said, over the top. And there were a couple of times where you thought maybe he would do something. But the damage was done in that game by the time he'd come on, really, which was only half time. But then, yeah, I just think give players like that, like a lot of the players deserve a little bit of time. And I think the Eustace out sort of chance, I just completely disagree with. I don't mind people having their opinion about whether he should go or not, but I think that's insane considering what he's done for us, let alone for other people. So yeah, I think it will take time, but someone like Bobby Clark needs to step up. He needs to be one of the players that's like, right, okay, you weren't going to play me. I didn't start. Let me take this by the sort of scruff of the neck and go and show you that I can carry the ball and I can do something
Ivan,
different.
Don't you think part of it though is the fact that he's not playing in his right position?
Yeah,
yeah, I think that's the problem with a lot of them. Yeah, it's a ton of everyone apart from Morris up there is sort of filtered in. It's like, well, let's just sort of get them in and then something good will happen because they're all good players. And it's like, I think Eustace will get to the point, like I said before, where it's gotten bad. We're getting the boos now. We haven't played very well. We haven't played well at home. You 4 good players are going to sit on the bench because you can't all play. And it will get to that point. And just for the moment, it's like, okay, I've signed all these players. They all want to play. It might just be a case of like, until they show you that it's not working, if he drops Brereton Diaz now, he might have been promised first team football, which is why he joined on loan. He now can't have any qualms about that. You haven't been good enough. Like, you just haven't. Same with, even like Adjumang. I think he's looked like there's something there for sure, but you've come for 6 or 7 million quid. You don't really have a stake to say that you have to start. None of them do. So now it needs to get to the point where Eustace is like, right, what do I think is the best system, and what do I think is the best overall chance of us actually playing well as a team? And it might be, I saw someone mention in the comments, possibly looking into youth. It might be that. It might just be saying, okay, we don't have any wingers. Great, step up. We've seen it with Ebiowe. We saw it with a couple of the young wingers years ago. Like, this is where you get the chance. If they're not playing well, it doesn't matter if they're expensive or if they're on loan from bigger clubs or whatever it is. We need to find some results now. Otherwise, it's going to get a little bit nasty, and there's going to be some uncomfortable conversations about Eustace, which I certainly will be one of the last people to have, but I can see why they're there. So something needs to change, and I think there's a few different options for that, and I do trust Eustace to get that done.
Yeah, I think it's interesting with youth players. I know obviously Derby have got a decent enough youth side playing under 21 football, but they do seem to lose quite a lot.
They're struggling at the
Academy,
moment.
they are struggling in the under 21s, and if players are struggling in the under 21s, how are they going to deal with a team struggling down at the bottom of the championship with the fans seemingly against them at the minute? You know what I mean? It's not a good environment. Like when the likes of Ebiowe came in, the players could do no wrong, right? Because of the situation we were in, and it really got the best out of the players, and it was a really supportive atmosphere. With the way the atmosphere is at the minute, I'm not so sure. I don't think I'd want to, bring through a young Cruz Allen. I know he's one that's been mentioned a few times, which is ironic because he's probably a very similar build and similar style of player as Bobby Clark. You wouldn't want to bring him into the team and go for it, do something.
No, yeah, you don't want to rush it for sure.
Yeah, and put the pressure on him. And if the atmosphere is hostile, it could have a negative impact on his career as well. So I don't know. This is why we don't make these decisions. This is why we sit here on a Sunday night and we talk to each other about it, and why we're not the ones making the decisions. This is for Eustace and the team to work out. But talk about decisions. A lot of stuff's happened over the last week behind the scenes. I know we didn't really tend to talk about that because usually it's pretty boring, but Mark Thomas, who was head of recruitment beforehand, he's gone. Jake Buxton, who seems to be one of those roles, when you're at work and you're kind of there and they like you, but they want someone else to do the role you're doing. So they kind of make up a role and go, yeah, senior transition coach, class, do that, Bucko, enjoy yourself. He's moved from that role to manage Alfreton Town. Callum, a lot seems to be changing behind the scenes at Derby at the minute. I mean, we heard Clark's apparently going to Celtic for 6 million. We've lost loads of people. Travis is dead. Many things have happened at once. Is something happening at Derby at the minute behind the scenes?
I think there's just a realization that some things haven't worked out. They're going. I think that BBC Radio Derby were saying that we're now going to get a data analyst, a sort of senior data analyst, and then another one underneath them, and we're kind of going down that analytical route. We already had that Mo Bobat's cricket recruitment data guy, and a colleague of his already leave. So we've already had some decisions already go back, and now this is almost like you said. Was it head of talent ID was Mark Thomas? We've still now not got a proper director of football. Bromby's now staying till January, so that summer decision, which what in an interim position is now a permanent position till the end of January. So it kind of just thinks that we're going against not what we did, but we're in that kind of limbo period where we don't know if it's working out from a fan base or what's going on behind the scenes. Is it stable? Is Eustace coming in and going, these people in these positions are not for me, and I want to have a say in these decisions? I don't know, because obviously some of these recruitment positions were already in place before Eustace came in. So as Eustace had a direct say in who he wants to kind of talk to about recruitment, I don't know. So yeah, interesting things off the pitch, which obviously when you have people leaving these sort of positions doesn't really bode well when the team aren't doing well on the pitch either.
Yeah, I was just thinking I forgot about the cricket team, actually. I completely forgot about that. And I just thought for a second when you were talking there, Callum, I was like, in cricket, what do they have? You kind of attack with batsmen. You hit the ball, and then you have your fielders. I don't know if that's the correct term, so I'm really sorry, cricket fans, if it's not, who defend. And that's why we've signed about 9 strikers and 9 centre halves, because all they do is attack, and there's no midfield. You don't have a cricket centre mid, do you? You've just got attackers and defenders. Maybe that's the reason all along why we've done that. But yeah, it's certainly interesting. And Ivan, we talked about the last couple of years. It's been all over the place. We've had new recruitment teams coming in every 5 minutes. We've had changes of managers. We've had a massive turnaround in players. We said we wanted a little bit of stability. Can you see stability for Derby this season?
I predict it. Yeah, I think we'll get there. I don't think it's particularly stable at the moment. I think with the stuff behind the scenes, I can't pretend I know what's going on, or even what a lot of these people do. Like there's a lot of people that it's, oh, this person just left. All honesty, I didn't know. Yeah, okay, cool. So yeah, I think it's come at a bad time in terms of we're not playing very well. But this stuff happens when you're playing well as well. Manage it, like youth managers move to full senior jobs all the time. It has happened to come at a time where we haven't had a very good opening 10 games. But I don't really put too much onus on that. I don't worry about that kind of stuff. I think what matters is, I think people should trust Eustace specifically. I think he's a great manager, and I think 10 games ago we thought we were, making the playoffs. Some people did, not necessarily me, but a lot of people had really great expectations for us because it was the first time we'd invested properly in years, and there were, whether people admit it or not, myself included, I thought it was going to be a lot better than this, and I didn't really see a reality in which we were sitting a point or so off the relegation zone after 10 games, and Blackburn have a game in hand, so they could be above us after that. So I think we will get there. I think it always seems more negative online because people talk a lot more negatively online than they do positively, just naturally with anything. So I always tend to stay away as much as possible after losses. But yeah, I think it will take a couple of good results, a couple of players who just step up, and it will change everything. I think, like you said, we've signed centre backs, we've signed strikers. They're good players. If we can start linking them together and actually getting them sort of working properly, there's a great team in there. There's a fantastic 11 with a great bench out there somewhere, and it's about Eustace trying to figure it out and figure out who the best people are to be in there. And I think he will do that. And he certainly, I just think after 10 games, 4 or 5 of which we barely had a proper back four, and then we didn't really have like the midfielders. Some players came at the end of the window. It just hasn't been that long. And I usually at 10 games is the place where I'm thinking, okay, this is sort of where we look. But I just think this season it will take a bit longer. And I think eventually we will finish sort of mid-table-ish and we'll be fine, but that never seems to happen for any team. No one's solidified as a mid-table team in the Championship until what feels like sort of April or March. So it's going to take some time, but I think, saying it for like the 5th time, they've earned the trust, or Eustace has certainly, and the backroom stuff, and David Klaus has preached patience over the last 3-4 years more than anyone, and everyone always chucks the toys out of the pram, and he seems to be the one that constantly just stays level-headed and eventually makes the right decision. So I trust him more than Eustace. I trust him more than anyone. So I'm happy with where I think we're going to be, and I think they'll figure it out fairly soon. I don't think it will take too long.
Vic Singh says, can't get any worse than yesterday, can it? It can. So let's look ahead.
You could be Forest.
We could be. So we've got 2 games coming up. We've got Norwich at home. a team that seem desperate to be as bad as us at the moment. They're on a terrible run. We're on equivalent points at the minute, which says a lot about them. And then we've got QPR at home as well on the Saturday. I mean, these are two massive games, Callum, really, really big games. And I really do think that if Derby don't get a positive result in both of them, the pressure's really going to mount on John Eustace and this Derby team. How do you see him going?
I hope it's a positive result, because otherwise I just see Norwich being like Charlton, a toxic atmosphere. And the big thing is it's a team around us who are also struggling for Norwich's standards. So I'll go 1-0 win. It won't be pretty. I think it will be a really real slog of a game, just because of the way we're playing at the moment. I think it's just both teams are out to try and get a result, just to try and turn their narratives around. So I'm going to go 1-0 win. I don't know if you want goal scorer. I can't think of one really. I'll go Ajimang. Why not?
Someone has to put it in, don't they? Someone has to put it in. Ivan, how do you see the next two games going, mate?
Like you said, it's massive week. And I think especially since they're both at home, it's going to be like away games are bad when it goes bad and you hear the booing. Home games are where it's really like, if you've got sort of 30-odd thousand fans really unhappy by halftime, it can go south pretty quick. But I think they'll be up for it. Norwich are not very good, and it is there for the taking if we play like we're supposed to play at home. So I think we'll potentially win that one, and then I think against QPR, I think we'll play well, but I think we may draw that one, because they've got some tricky players that I worry about our sort of back line against some of their forward options. But I think it'll be a decent week. I don't think it's going to change overnight, but I think a couple of sort of stability fixtures where we actually play well, even if we lost, if we could just see a sort of element of fight for a start, the first thing, the bare minimum that you should be giving, that anyone can give, but just a little bit more. Okay, I can see how they're linking up. There's a duo that look good together. There's a midfield pairing. There's a midfielder and a winger that seem to be working well together and are looking for each other. Something like that will be a move in the right direction, and then I think the results will come. But I do think it will be a good week, and I think our support, especially at home, will be really, really important, especially in that QPR game, because it's a Saturday. So I'm looking forward to it, kind of.
I'm glad someone is. I'm not sure I mean, looking at the comments, Eustace Enthusiast is quite unenthusiastic and says we're going to lose 2-1 to Norwich and 2-1 QPR. Jim says, yeah, we're going to lose 2-0 to Norwich and 3-1 to QPR. So it's looking good. It's looking nice and positive. I think if we stick playing this 4-4-2 or 4-2-4, I think we lose both games. I think we probably lose to Norwich, probably 1 or 2-0. Actually 2-1. Sorry, let's not be harsh. We'll score. Who's going to score? Langes is going to score off the bench and do the boost celebration at 2-1 down. That'll be nice. And then I think QPR are going to beat is probably 2 or 3-0 with the way that they're playing at the minute and the way that we're playing. We literally are awful if we play that back four with the 4 strikers. It's dreadful. It's a horrible watch and it just doesn't work. I think if we play a back 3 or we mix it up a little bit, I don't know how that would be, but if we play a back 3 with 2 holding midfielders, get Clark in front of them to, kind of try and pass occasionally, which would be a nice change from recent games, I think we've got a chance. And I think we'll probably let's say beat Norwich, because we can't be too depressed on the pod, can we? I think we'll beat Norwich 1-0. Clark will score. And then him and Johnson will run over to the people who sat near me at the away game yesterday and shush them, and then we'll play against QPR. I think we'll still probably lose to QPR regardless. To be honest, I think they'll beat us 1-0. It'll be another one of those fun home games that we all enjoy. But Derby's got a lot of work to do. John Eustace has got a lot of work to do. The team needs to change. We're at a point now where we can't get away with these sort of performances. We've had 2 international breaks now. We've had plenty of time as a team together. The players should be getting fitter. They should be learning each other. Now it's time to deliver. So let's hope we can get that win, that first home win over the line in the next week, and hopefully bring some smiles back to faces again. And then we don't have to be Rams mode anymore, because that's how it feels. It feels a little bit like that. I promise we definitely don't want to do this. It's much better when we win, trust me. So thank you so much for listening. If you did enjoy, please do leave a like. Please do subscribe. Please give us a positive rating on Spotify, Apple Pods. We really appreciate it. We've had loads of great live comments. I'm sorry we've not got to all of them. There's been a lot, and there's been a lot to talk about today. But if you do have any comments, if you're watching this back or listening back on Spotify, YouTube, wherever, leave us your comments. We'll read them all. It's always good to get the conversation too and see different sides of the coin and understand how people see the game. It's always good. It's always enjoyable. So yeah, thank you so much for listening. I can't even say keep the faith because we've been that bad recently. Let's hope we win. Let's hope we actually turn it around and win. Just like my team did this afternoon. Come on, winning. I can't lose every game this weekend. It'd ruin my life. So thank you. It is goodbye from me.
Bobby Clark, Derbyshire Dales over the Scottish Highlands. My friend, goodbye from me.
Keep the faith. I'll say it. Keep the faith. In Eustace we trust. Goodbye from me.
And from Callum and Ivan's barber, it's goodbye from me too. We'll see you soon. Goodbye.